Hi, Carmen.
Hi Matthew, how you doing?
Doing well.
Well, that's good.
I just got off a Teams meeting where I had a background, and then I got onto Zoom and I discover I don't have a background. Oh well.
It took me a while to figure out how to get my background to work.
Mm.
So are you guys back to City Hall, working at City Hall now? Pretty much everybody, or?
Well, we have been in City Hall. We haven't all been here at this at the same time, not full capacity or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah.
The doors are locked. Um, I read, or at least I heard something like I think it was maybe Los Gatos might be gearing up, um, maybe as early as August.
Oh, is that right? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because what the governor said something about June 15th, and I don't know how that dominoes down to like each specific county.
Yeah, yeah. I know I was talking to some people I know at Cupertino, and I think they're looking at starting, but phasing people where you'd go to the office 1 week and then you'd be working from home the next 2 weeks. I don't know how they'd phase that, they wouldn't have everybody there. So I
Mm,
don't know when they're going to start that. I don't know if they're looking at starting that in June, but no.
yeah, it's going to take a little practice
Yeah.
getting used to things going back to normal. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Matt.
Hi, hey everybody.
I might as well start taking roll. I'm expecting Fred. I'm not sure if Todd is going to join us because he mentioned something about having another meeting, but he didn't say what time. Oh, I heard his office door will close, so he might be joining us. I don't think Amy is going to be joining us tonight. Oh, and Joanna's not joining us tonight.
So is there construction going on at the library? Or
someone asked me that question. I think it was Bart.
Because I haven't been over there in a while.
We had our inspector, public works inspector, go out there, and he didn't find anything under construction. So not really sure. Hi, Dave. I don't know what was the issue.
I was just curious.
Mm-hmm. So were we.
Hi, Matthew, Carmen, you guys hear me, see me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you, David.
Looking
Okay.
good.
Fancy background. Todd. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. So we're waiting for Mark. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mart. And Laura Smith cannot join us tonight. She's traveling.
Now, is Laura a BPAC member?
No.
Oh, she likes to just check in and see what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, she's always interested.
Yeah.
Emeritus?
Right, there you go.
There you go. That's a good term.
There you go.
There's Mark. Okay. Yeah, well, looks like we have everybody. I tell you what, today I'm going to, for the interest of time, I'm going to start right now. Any chance that folks have a chance to look at the minutes?
Yes.
We just FYI, we did look at the curb to curb width there was a request to look at could bike lanes be fit into Campbell Avenue in front of Campbell Park. It's really, let's say it's really tight, and you would either have to lose the left turn lane and or forego any future ideas of on-street parking as reflected in the East Campbell Avenue master plan. But also there's a median island where even if you could shift the lanes, then you'd have to wiggle back to conform and avoid hitting the island. So that's kind of the feedback that I got from when I sent someone out there to measure.
What was the width that they got?
I don't have it in front of me.
Oh, okay.
But I'm just recalling though.
Oh, okay.
After our meeting, I sent somebody out there. But in any case, that was just one of the action items on the minutes. But if anyone wanted to make a motion to accept the minutes,
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Yeah.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed? All right, motion carried. Next item is our recap of ongoing projects. The first one is 3A, the downtown pedestrian improvements. It's a couple of projects that are under the same umbrella project number, but I've taken out the bike box because that portion of work has been completed. But the other part includes the installation of what they're called rectangular rapid flashing beacon system, RRFBs. And there are two crossings, pedestrian crossings in the downtown where such flashing beacons were intended to be installed. One was at Civic Center Drive and 2nd Street. The other is Orchard City Drive and 2nd Street. The Orchard City Drive, 2nd Street concept, I believe we presented here at the BPAC, and the work is being included as in the scope of one of our upcoming our paving project, and we'll get a recap of that paving project later on in 3D. So just an FYI, we truncated the title here so that bike box is done. Item number 3B is the Campbell Park Bikeway project. Tell you what, the next 3 projects, perhaps Fred, I don't know if you have your narrative in front of you. I do, but if you don't, I can read it off, but it might be more exciting if you explain.
Exciting is going to be hard to measure up to. I actually, unfortunately, I don't have the agenda in front of me. So Matthew, if you actually don't mind prompting me here and there.
Okay.
So you are right now. You just mentioned the Campbell Park Pathway project. That project is actually one of the number of projects that actually a maintenance group is actually taking over the construction of. So I think we presented the concept plan in front of the group. I think it was the last round, maybe 2 rounds ago. That project is now actually going into construction. In fact, the yard maintenance group is actually looking at next Monday, I believe, or early next week, to start to fence off the construction area. And so it's going to take about maybe a month or so for them to actually do all the work. And one of the first things they have to do once the fence goes up is taking care of some of the irrigation heads and so forth and cap them before they actually excavate for the pathway. So the entire construction looking about a month or so thereabouts. So that's what they're anticipating right now. Again, they're looking to start early next week.
Okay,
Okay.
so construction by June.
Yeah.
Okay. And I have in front of me for the next item, Harriet Avenue.
Yeah, I got a quick question on that. So,
Sure.
so so then the next phase of that project is the work on the play area and the restroom. Is that correct? And
That's correct.
Is there a schedule for that? Just curiosity, because it's just all construction that's going to be going on, and just curious.
Yeah. So it's a different project. So that project is back into the engineering group, my shop, and we are still wrapping up the final design. The consultant designer was supposed to provide the what we call 100% uncheck the next either end of this week, end of next week. So what we're looking at is potentially going to construction sometime in fall. And so that's kind of the timing we're trying to match up, is that after the pathway is done, the new pathway is done, then shortly after that, we will go in with a playground. And that way, there's always going to be a pathway for the users to access when the playground project takes over and have to close out the existing pathway.
Okay. If there are no more questions, the next item was the Harriet Avenue sidewalk project. And what I have here is the 65% design is in development.
Yeah, that's right. So that project, just as a reminder, this is Harriet Avenue between south of Westmont Avenue, between Westmont Avenue and Van Dusen Lane. If you're not familiar with that area, that particular streets on the west side of the street, there's a lot of gaps in terms of concrete improvements, so sidewalk, driveways, ADA curb ramps, and things like that. So that project is going to focus on that. We're working on what we call 65%, meaning we have settled on the grading concept and things like that. Now we're actually working to turn those concepts into construction documents. So the timing of that, this is a federally funded project, so there's quite a bit of hoop to jump through, meaning we have to get engaged Caltrans, and we have done so, trying to meet those deadlines that Caltrans has for us. What it all means is we are looking at, again, depending on the actual approval process from Caltrans, probably looking at spring 2022 is when the construction will start. Meanwhile, we have sent out a what I refer to as project announcement. We haven't done it. We're trying to get that out next week to the resident along that corridor, so that they can expect something to happen, because some of the utility work might have to take place first. There's a couple of trees. There's some trees that we have to remove before our project starts. So yeah, you see the project website here, where there's some pictures of the existing area. Part of the project, in addition to pedestrian improvement, is we'll be putting in sharrows. And so, like I say, this is the north end of this street is actually T into Westmont Avenue, which is where Westmont High School is. So we're looking forward to getting this improvement out there, and hopefully more students and parents can bike or walk to and from the high school.
Any questions? Okay, the next project is this annual street maintenance project 2021. There's about a paragraph. I can read it off, and then you can add.
Sure, thank you. Yes.
All right, the construction contract has been awarded to O'Grady Construction for the city's annual maintenance project. 21-BB is the project number. Construction is anticipated to start sometime in June, May, June. The city of San Jose recently finished the paving work along Latimer Avenue and along Charleston Avenue. So they're ahead of us. Other work like utility adjustment, etc., remains. Campbell City crew will install sharrows at a later date once San Jose completes all of its work.
Yeah, so actually I will actually address that one first. So San Jose approached us and the city of Campbell because San Jose was paving their half of Latimer between San Tomas Aquino Road to, I forgot roughly where Michelle Drive is, thereabout. And so we own the north half, they own the south half. So we took the opportunity to have them pave our half of the street. With their project, we can get better pricing and different things like that. So that paving, I was notified that was just done, just finished. And so what San Jose still have to do, of course, is adjust some of the utilities that's out there and put the final striping back in. I did receive word that we might be, we right now it looks like there's some contingency left in that project, and we should be able to actually put the sharrows along Latimer with that effort. So meaning San Jose will put the sharrows in at least within that portion of the streets. So that's kind of a bit of good news that we just learned. Then coming back to our project 21BB, that project is our annual streets maintenance project. So for those of you maybe not too familiar, our paving program actually is a 5-year cycle. So it comprises of 2 years of what we call residential street and collective street sealing, and then the next 3 years are dedicated to arterial. So we just paved Winchester. So this is the first, I call it the first year, but kind of the year one of a 5-year cycle. So meaning we're returning back to the residential streets. So what that means is I don't recall the exact number of streets, but it's kind of citywide, doing different types of sealing. In fact, this time we have a couple of short streets that we are actually overlaying. So that's happening. Like Matthew mentioned, we just awarded the construction contract to O'Grady. They're out of Mountain View, but they have done a lot of local work. We had a pre-construction meeting with them earlier this week, and they are anxious to start. But of course, there's some certain things they have to comply to before they can actually start. There's some submittals that we have to review that they have to provide. On top of that, they need to notify the affected residents 2 weeks ahead. So looking like again, they're anxious to start. So depending on how quick they can get all those things done beforehand, probably third week of maybe fourth week of June, maybe sooner, depending on the progress of how quickly you get certain certain material to us. The first order of work is usually concrete repair before we can pave. So that would take place first, and then into the summer, that's when we would pave. And then the work that Matthew mentioned about the RRFB in the downtown area, particularly the intersection of Orchard City Drive and 2nd, that work would come in toward the end of the project because it involved building new traffic islands and some striping modifications. So that type of work typically is toward the end of the project because you want to pave the street first, obviously, before you do anything on top of the new paving. So we're looking at again. We have to revisit the schedule to be more accurate, but probably sometime early fall, late summer is when that work would happen, and we'll bring back some updates once the construction schedule is more firm.
Any questions? I have a question. For us to have our yard install the sharrows, we kind of have to know where their sharrows end because there's a certain spacing requirement. Are we going to play it by ear? Or I guess there are no plans per se. It's something that's marked out in the field.
That's correct.
as we go. Okay.
Yeah. So we definitely coordinate with that. So one of the things that we always, at least on the staff side, we always have to remind ourselves is particularly when working with City of San Jose, their program much bigger than ours. So we've been pretty happy with the coordination that we have together. The communication line is pretty good. But when they say they're gonna start, they're gonna start striping, it might be a while before they get to us because they have the entire program. Their program is it's like $50 million or something like that. It's huge. So we'll continue to coordinate with them. And as soon as we get some inkling on exactly when the striping is going to happen, we'll definitely bring it back and coordinate with Matthew's group.
Okay. Thanks, Fred.
Of course.
The last project that we were doing a recap of is this 1700 Dell Avenue. It's towards the southern end of the city. We had talked about the curb cut leading to an asphalt concrete path and the access to the Los Gatos Creek Trail. We really don't have much of an update except the civil engineering consultant for the developer is just running into design issues regarding the grading of the sidewalk. So they're still working on it. Yeah, so we haven't seen anything new. So moving right along. Item number 4, TDA grant application. We submitted our grant application to VTA already. The due date was in April. But there are 2 items that we still need to submit. One involves a council resolution, just making sure that we are following the rules. We are committed to follow the rules of the conditions required for TDA funds, and the resolution was adopted this week, and I'll submit the resolution, the signed resolution, to VTA at the same time that we get from the county recorder's office the environmental documentation. Bike projects, pedestrian projects are categorically exempt, but we have to wait for posting of the notice for 30 days and then getting the county recorder's office to file the notice. So we're just waiting. The environmental documentation and the resolution, they aren't due until the end of June this year, so there's plenty of time. Then once, David, are you saying something? You're muted? Okay, sorry. So that's about it for TDA grant. It's just an update of what we've already talked about, and it's just a process. Once we get the funding approved by MTC, then we can move forward with using those funds. Any questions? Okay. Number 5.
I might chime in here just for a second. I don't know if folks on the BPAC ever monitor the council agendas, but if a few of these projects that we're talking about will, they all have an appropriate level of check-in with the council. So as Matthew was describing the TDA grant, it just made me think that we actually had that on the council agenda on Tuesday night, and it passed. It was a consent calendar item, and so it got passed by the council. And so a few of these will periodically, you need to go to council if they're going to be a major contract award, like the Campbell Park project. So if you follow council agendas, you'll see these things come up once in a while, and then maybe in future updates, we'll also let you know things that you might want to keep an eye on because once they go to the advisory body, whether it's the BPAC or the Parks and Rec Commission or the Planning Commission, then there's typically a recommendation that goes along with that to get it to council. So it's good, sometimes it's good to track these items that come before you because you know that they will get to council. They'll ultimately have to go to council for final approval. So just thought I'd throw that in. Thanks.
Okay, so the next item is the Measure B Education and Encouragement Program. Every year we get an allocation from Measure B for, like it says, purpose of education or encouragement. Essentially, it's not for construction projects. And some of the concepts that we talked about with the BPAC in the past had included one idea was safe routes to school maps. In particular, we're thinking of two schools. One is Rosemary School, one on Eden Avenue, north of Hamilton Avenue. And the other school, I believe it was Capri Elementary School. It has a fair amount of pedestrian travel, whether it's people parking and walking their kids in or just kids being walked from the neighborhood. And so it seems like a couple of good opportunities. That's one concept. The other is a citywide bike map, which would be pretty interesting. We were wondering, since one of you works for the city of Cupertino in the area of safe routes to school, Matt, is that something well, one, does the city of Cupertino have a citywide bike map? And then two, do you have some kind of, sorry, I was looking at Mark when I was, do you have safe routes to school maps per school?
Yeah, so both are true. Cupertino has a citywide bike map, and they have individual, what they call suggested routes to school maps for all 14 schools that are within the city. And then the map, the extent of the map actually extends into neighboring cities, given the attendance boundaries and the overlap there. But I don't know how, so we have to like constantly print them, and they're incredibly expensive to print, and then distributing them is a real pain. So a hard copy map, I don't think is the best route to go. I don't know how, robust Campbell's GIS division is, if it has one, but maybe like using the Measure B funds to hire a consultant to produce some sort of like suggested routes to school maps that are available online in GIS format or something. That way they're easily, you can share them easily, everyone can access them. There's not like the routine costs associated with printing. Those are the ones that I prefer. Additionally, kind of creating the maps was a little strange because they were crowdsourced in the sense that students and families, the city staff was at school sites and kind of asked students and families how they get to school and to mark it on a map. And then they took that information along with what they knew in terms of like, all right, are these roads safe in my like traffic engineering opinion? And they kind of combine those two things together to produce the maps. So they're not like quite safe routes to school, which is why they have a weird title of recommended suggested routes to school. But I think it's a great use of funds, but not to print them.
Kind of agree. There's some logistical issues. Yeah, who owns the electronic files? Yeah, that having to go back and print. Bart?
Yeah, didn't want to interrupt, but I had a comment related to the, citywide bike map.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So, Matt, you were thinking of a GIS now.
Yeah, I know like there's a lot of cool different maps that people can produce, and I'm sure like the city could bring on board a consultant that could create something really interactive and engaging and marketable. So I think that's the direction you guys should head in.
I would ask, does the city have web capability where if some maps were created, initially there would be the ability to update them. I mean, to me, that's a big plus about doing something that would be online. But you need to have it set up so that it can be maintained, going forward once it's been initially put into place.
Just curious, do you have an idea of the type of firm? Would it be something like a planning type firm like Alta, or is it more of a
Yeah, any of those firms could produce something like that. Alta, Tool, Nelson Nygaard, Kimley Horn, any firm like that could probably make something. Alta would probably be most familiar with like making bike maps for schools and making it pretty and aesthetically pleasing. But I also know Kimley Horn, they just were the consultant that was brought on board to do the Bollinger Road corridor study for San Jose and Cupertino. And they had this really cool tool for community to make recommendations on like proposed improvements, like this pinpoint tool. So they got a lot of capability in terms of developing GIS based stuff. But I guess it would just be the design of the maps would be the most like difficult aspect of it. Just determining what you guys want to identify as a safe route to school. But I think they're really cool, and it kind of shows for the city, like the city can say, hey, we're actively trying to provide residents with information that can help their children's or their child travel safe to school. So in that regard, I love it.
I'm thinking of this as well as the citywide bike pack. Is there someone you can put us in contact with, maybe to get a ballpark figure budget for budgeting purposes?
Yeah, I think so. Also, I think the two could be complementary. Like you could have, like they're going to be, the information that gets put into the safe routes to school maps is likely going to come from the bike map. So some overlap there.
Okay. Okay, so now let's open it up to the citywide bike map as well. Bart, you want to start it off?
Yes. So actually, my comments apply to both. So the biking apps that a lot of us use to plan our bike routes and stuff reference not only the regular street maps but also open street maps, and in particular, there's a special bicycle category for open street maps. There's the open bike map, and this specifically shows bike lanes, bike routes, recommended bike routes, and so on. And this is, of course, it's an open sourced system. So it depends on volunteers coming and putting the right information in on the particular streets and so on. I've actually once or twice done a few minor edits of that myself, but it takes a pretty good amount of effort to understand their whole system of categorizing things and how to do the editing. But if we had somebody that would just go into that system, in fact, and make sure that things are labeled correctly, all the bike lanes in Campbell are correctly shown, and the recommended routes, bike routes are shown or marked, then that becomes available to all the people using those maps or using the apps that use them. And in a similar vein, Google has a system where you can make special annotated map of any whatever map you want, right? And you can provide a link to that and people can see it. So in terms of the recommended routes to school, and again, not something I've done a lot of, but I've made my own, maps to show people how to get to someplace. I was planning a party somewhere or whatever. We wouldn't have to, you don't have to build you don't have to have maps on your own servers or anything, right? All you've got to do is go use that Google Map system to let you make annotations on Google Maps, and then you provide a link. And you had to do whatever maintenance you have to do if anything changes. But otherwise, they run the system for you. It doesn't cost you anything. So I think that, if we had money and we hired somebody, that would probably be the lowest cost thing that they could, the lowest cost way that they could make something would be to do that. And then, all you have to do on the city websites is just provide links to those things. Well, you have to have an account. You'd have to have a Google account that owns that, your annotated map. So the city would have that, but then you just have to have a link for it. So I think that would be something to look into.
Okay.
And, it might be done by volunteers if like in Cupertino, if they have a map sketched out, I don't think it would be very hard to do the annotation onto the Google Maps, but it's not that exact kind of thing. I haven't tried.
What's oh, sorry, Martin.
Yeah, so there's the Google one. There's an OpenStreetMap. The open bike version of it. I think it would be good for the city to see that it's a big open source system. That the data in it about the Campbell Streets is correct. And go ahead.
I was just curious, what is the amount of the Measure B funding that's available? Because is it based off of population? What's the formula for that? Is it around like 40 grand or something?
I forget. I think
maybe a little less.
I think it's based on population formula. And what's happened to us, there was a lawsuit that kind of held back the beginning of the distribution of the annual allocations. So we banked about, I think, at least $100,000. And I think we get about 29 or 30,000 per year. So I did have a question for VTA staff, and I'm still waiting for the answer. Is I think there's like a 3 or 4 year time frame. After that, you have to spend. You can't continue to accumulate fiscal years worth of allocations. There comes a deadline, but I think that's a pretty healthy sum.
Yeah, in that case, I would really consider looking at someone like Tool, because I know they just did the bike plan for San Jose, and they produced some really amazing maps for their bike plan update. And something like that would probably be super easy for them to put together. Someone who's got proficient skills in ArcGIS can make this stuff in less than a week, probably.
Interesting. Yeah, we had a meeting with City of San Jose, and yeah, someone from Tool was at that meeting trying to walk us through. Okay.
Given how Campbell is surrounded by San Jose, if there's something that would be compatible in terms of the user interface, the same look and feel, that would, I'm sure, help people both in Campbell who go into San Jose and people in San Jose who come into Campbell and so on.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. So maybe using the same consultant then would make it really easy. They could just take what they did from San Jose and expand the extent of the map, and then focus on Campbell. I don't know.
Sure, we just have to abide by what the city's policy is for selecting consultants. tool, it's spelling like TUUL or something like that, something unusual.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like TOOLE.
Okay, I'll look it up. Okay.
So I have just one comment about the open streets is that need to be careful about city liability if people are able to modify routes and that sort of thing. Just kind of throwing that out there, that if you get something that is more on a city GIS and a consultant that we did, then certainly people wouldn't be able to change routes. They'd be able to view them. Just some thoughts.
Yeah, and we're also in that. It's been an extended process of a general plan update. I was hoping that would be the opportunity for us to take another look at what we have from our 2001 general plan, and what needs to be updated. For instance, incorporating some of the bike facilities that we have added that frankly weren't in the general plan. Railway Avenue and Kennedy Avenue come to mind.
Hard to hear you, Matt.
Okay, well, I was just mentioning that we have this general plan update process that I was hoping would be the opportunity to take another look at our bikeway map. And so there's some consistency with what the city is presenting in its general plan and what we're coming up with in this citywide bike map. I'm not sure if it's going to happen, but if the general plan update were done, then that would nail down the location of our bike lanes or our bike routes, etc. Just a thought. Okay, any other comments? Okay, good comments. Item number 6 is the Mayor's Commissions Collaborative. Remember we had a work plan for the BPAC? Those ideas were incorporated in a memo from the city manager. And correct me if I'm wrong, Todd, was it included as part of the agenda package or something like that? I seem to recall there was a document that included for all the different commissions.
Yes, there was. So the information that was gathered by every advisory body's liaison was compiled and put together for council consideration as one of the very early budget study sessions. So I want to say that the packet of those, the collection of those, I should say, went to council probably in April. And so we were using that. So each of the departments and the council took that under consideration along with the established council priorities. And then of course you overlay what the financial constraints of the city are. So things that we think we can and can't do. So it all kind of feeds into the budget process. And we're still kind of working our way through that. So as I say, there was a council meeting the other night. And that was like hopefully the last study session before we take a proposed budget to council. But a lot of the feedback that came from each of the advisory bodies was used by individual departments and by council to kind of craft, which direction they thought the budget should go. Because we are essentially funding the city's priorities as we do through the budget. So that's where we are. I will say that from the capital side, the CIP side, we're doing reasonably well in terms of bike and ped projects, because we do have a fair amount of those that stand on their own that are typically managed by Matthew. And then we have some that sometimes get rolled into larger capital projects. Like a best example of that was the repaving work on Winchester, when we not only repaved, but we're able to add the bike facilities out there as well. So it's done through a variety of ways. So we're working through that now. In fact, there's a community workshop on the budget in about 19 minutes. And if we're not finished with this meeting by then, I will need to depart to be a part of that. So it always helps if you want to follow through the budget process and just see what's being proposed. And if you have any recommendations along the way, that this is kind of the process for how we keep the city's priorities in the forefront. But certainly the feedback that we gathered from each of the advisory bodies was factored into the budget preparation.
Okay. I know, Carmen, in years past, you've been interested in seeing the CIP and what projects are related to bicycles and pedestrians. Is there an easy list that's available? No.
By my hesitancy, you can probably tell the answer is no. I just had this conversation with the city manager because, our CIP, our capital improvement program, is not nearly as complex as some of the larger cities around us, but it's still hard to consolidate down into one single page. But I think there probably are some things that we could get out to you that in a fairly easy manner that are kind of a boiled down list to next year's projects, some carryover projects, and then what's proposed over the next 5-year period. So I think we can send something to you offline, so at least you'll have a sense of what's being proposed. I mean, the whole capital budget goes on for hundreds of pages, and we wouldn't want to overburden you with that. But I think we can get you a fairly easy to read synopsis, maybe in the next, I don't know if we could do it by tomorrow, but certainly by early next week, we could probably get something out to you if you're interested.
Matthew, you beat me to the question.
That's good anticipation.
Good job.
I've been conditioned. Okay.
And if I can chime in too, just really quick, not the whole CIP program, but for the projects that are in implementation, especially for a more physical project, the bigger projects, you saw a little bit of it when Matthew was helping me scroll through some of those. City has a project website update that kind of provides more current statuses of various project, and those project pages has a certain format. So it has backgrounds and different tabs in the bottom of the page. If you're interested, that shows background and then current progress and then anticipated schedule and any other information that the public might be interested to see. So that's a good place to go look at if you're just interested in seeing what might be going on at this moment. But certainly, yeah, it's just a quick snapshot of what's available if you're interested in those kind of status too.
I'll quickly share my screen just to show it's pretty easy to find what Fred was referring to. Is you go to the home page, hover over departments, and under Public Works is project updates. There you go. You got the current projects, I guess other agency projects, but also if you want to look in the past, there are archived projects as well. Okay. All right. Next item is item 7, VTA BPAC update.
Yeah, not really too much to report. We did have a meeting last week. Let's see. They went over, I think, the list of Measure B projects that are going to be funded. Campbell doesn't have any, but other cities do, and a lot of it's being used by San Jose. But other than that, there's really not too much to report. That's it.
Oh, okay. Thanks for attending the meetings. Around the table, comments or discussion, item 8. Does anyone have anything?
Yeah, actually,
How about Mark? Go ahead and Mark it.
yeah, I was just wondering, Has there ever been a study done to add a crosswalk on North Lee Avenue, somewhere between Hamilton Ave and Dry Creek? The reason why I ask is that it's about 3/4 of a mile between Hamilton Ave and Dry Creek, and there's nowhere to cross in between those two streets. And it seems kind of unfortunate because if you do want to cross, if you want to be a law-abiding citizen and cross in the crosswalks, the intersection at Hamilton and Lee is very busy, and it has just a lot of cars just buzzing through there. And then on the other end for Dry Creek, it's kind of an odd layout, really. I mean, if you were coming from like Arroyo Seco, you wanted to cross, Lee going towards, I think, Bent or Cameo, you kind of have to almost do like a U-shaped type of crossing there too. So it's just not very friendly to people who want to cross Lee Avenue to get to maybe go towards, down Campbell Ave, to go towards the Prune Yard or to Campbell Park. And it just seems like it just kind of it separates those two neighborhoods. And even the neighborhoods like maybe beyond Meridian, it's just hard to cross there. And it hasn't been too bad since, the shelter in place and COVID. But I remember, pre-COVID that Lee is so busy that you would have to wait several minutes or up to 5 minutes during rush hour to try to get across that street safely.
Interesting. I have some ideas, and Todd, you can cut me off if you want. One is much of the avenue is shared with San Jose. The eastern half is San Jose, western half is Campbell. So there would have to be some cooperation. But if we were to consider something, there's kind of like a chicken and egg thing. We can come up with a device. Let's say like over at Harriet Avenue and McCoy Avenue, we have what they call a pedestrian hybrid beacon. It's not a full-blown signal, but it does get people to be able to walk across, and it stops traffic. So that's a possibility. It's not as expensive as a traffic signal. It's but it's in the six-figure range in any case. The other is, though, the chicken and egg part is normally you run some kind of traffic analysis to determine, is there enough of a demand in order to warrant the expense, to justify putting in such an expensive device. And I'm not sure how many people are walking across Lee Avenue, but then again, because there are 4 lanes of traffic, maybe that's why people aren't walking across.
Right.
So there's a couple of chicken and egg issues there.
Do you have to look at the speeds on that street also for a mid-block crossing? Just throwing that out there. It's for the kind of hawk thing that you're talking about. I don't know if there's a maximum speed and lanes for that kind of application.
That's a very good point. I'd have to back off a little and take a look at the guidelines to see, do they put a cap like higher than 35 miles per hour? Is it a good idea or not? Because it's a 35 mile per hour speed limit, but of course people who drive on the avenue drive faster. There's other factors, traffic volume. My thought was a location that's kind of, it's not centrally located, but it's in the middle, like Campbell Avenue. I don't know if that's the best. On the other hand, you're not dealing with left turns coming out of Campbell Avenue at that location because everyone's forced to make right turns. So to get back to your original question, that was one of the sentiments that we've heard here and there in the past. We don't have a plan yet, but it's good to hear if you're thinking about that, perhaps it's something that other people are thinking of as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I do know further down in San Jose as you go towards Blossom Hill, but I think at that point, Lee is maybe 2 lanes or maybe 3 lanes across. They do have a crosswalk with one of those blinking lights on it too. And then another, when I used to live in Mountain View many years ago, and they actually had one of those, had a crosswalk with like this blinking lights, and that was actually across Shoreline Boulevard, which I think had like 6 lanes of traffic there too. And that was a pretty big installation. It had almost kind of like almost like a traffic light, hanging thing with like the flashing lights for that one. But it seems like maybe it does. I think that what they had in Mountain View was probably a big expense, but it may be possible. I think, depending on like the speed limit or something to do that. So, but yeah, I think it'd just be, I just think it'd just be, if there are other people, and if there's a way to measure that to see if there's an interest, I think it would just be a great way to connect those 2 neighborhoods and then to the Prune Yard in downtown.
Yeah, that certainly came up when we were working with San Jose on the right turn islands, and then again with the left turn pockets. So our priority at the time was to get the traffic handled, the vehicular traffic. But certainly something that we could follow up with San Jose, because at that particular location, it is split jurisdiction. There is a location a little further to the north where there is a Campbell neighborhood on the east side of Lee as well. So, I mean, it's something that we can certainly look at in the future. Even though what Matthew says is this chicken and egg thing, and yeah, and I totally understand that, because sometimes if you put a crosswalk in, you will have a lot of good volume. But where the existing volume works against you on these things is that it doesn't make it very attractive for a grant funded project. So because you can't demonstrate a need, if the city wants to make it a priority, and that may very well be the case someday, we'd probably have to carry the load of funding along with San Jose. But it is something that, if you and the neighbor, and we've heard this before, so you're not the first one to bring it up. It's something that we need to keep on our radar and look for the opportunity. But thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your insights about this. It was very helpful to kind of hear all the jurisdictions and all the process to make a project like this happen. So yeah, so thank you.
I had maybe initially for Carmen, but others may chime in, which is just, reading the news, primarily, I guess, Mercury News here over the last 6 months, year. It seems like there's bike fatalities, in the Valley, mostly in San Jose, just about every month. And, with a variety of circumstances, a lot of times it's not really clear in the news. But I'm wondering, is this something, maybe that has come up at the VTA meetings? I mean, is this just the way things are, or, I mean,